Welcome to the WAGScast, a unique platform for empowering women and inspiring change, brought to you by Care Talk's Women Achieving Greatness in Social Care Awards.
And good afternoon. My name is Amanda Wright-Kluger of Bevan Brittan, and I'm very excited today to host this WAGS podcast, which is Nurturing Women Leaders in Social Care. I have with me three phenomenal women, Samanatha Crawley, Chief Executive Officer at Bracebridge Care Group. She has held senior positions in some of the sector's largest providers, and is also a non-exec director of the Outstanding Society, holds a place on the HIM Advisory Board, and also was a winner of the Leader in Care Award for WAGS, where she was highly commended. I have also Lucy Campbell, CEO of Right at Home. She has a very strong track record of supporting a wide portfolio of business to thrive from pre-start to scale. And she's passionate about people and supporting them to be the change that they want to be. I also have Hannah Neal-Donald of Hilton Nursing Partners, who was recognized as a rising star of the WAGS Award. She is the head of quality compliance and clinical governance, and is part of Hilton Nursing Partners, which in itself is award-winning nurse-led health and social care provider, rated as outstanding by the CQC twice. So if we can just go to the panel then. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey. So we're going to have a chat today about nurturing women in the social care leadership roles. And I think I've got three ladies on the panel who are certainly extremely qualified to have that discussion. So if I go straight into it then, and I'm going to throw some questions your way, and I think it might be nice to start with for you, Sam, to give us kind of a little bit about yourself, about your own journey in the social care sector and how you got to where you've got to.
I'd keep you all day because you never invite an Irish woman to a podcast, otherwise it could last till tomorrow. So I won't be too long about it. I've been around social care continuously for about the last 25, 26 years. And I came over here 30 odd years ago to work in a mental health hospital and worked in care homes, and then went in and, would you believe, managed hotels. I thought I'd make more money in hotels. So I went off and became a hotel general manager, and then came back into the sector about 25 years ago. So I've done every job that you can imagine in a care home, which has been really helpful. I think it always helps when you meet team members and you know the difference between nights and days, and you have the kind of arguments over they do this and they don't do this and all of this. But what I could see, I suppose, through my own journey was I had some fantastic mentors right the way through my career.
Well, and we're going to get on to those mentors, because that is something I'm really interested in hearing about from all three of you. Lucy, how about yourself, your journey? How has your journey manifested itself?
So I started my career always working in the for more than profit sector, so working across a host of different agendas, from homelessness to regeneration to digital inclusion. And formerly, before joining Right at Home, I was working for an organisation called Franchising Works, as CEO, that supported people at transition periods in their lives to get into franchising as an alternative to employment. And Right at Home was one of our clients. It was certainly a brand to watch in the franchising world. So when an opportunity came up to join, it really ticked all of my boxes in terms of making a difference, but also being part of a really exciting business venture that was really going places. That was almost a decade ago, and I've never looked back. I couldn't imagine myself working for any different sector.
So you were stolen, in other words. You were poached. Hannah, what about you, your journey?
Well, for the majority of my career, has been very much hospital based. So I did my nurse training back in 2010 to 2013, and I was in the hospital before then. But actually, before going into hospital, I used to work in care home, and a residential home as well as a care assistant. So I suppose my journey started from social care, and then I've sort of come back to it. With the realization of how institutionalized I became in the NHS. And it's just a completely different environment. And the challenges are so different, but there are so many challenges in social care that I just don't think people in the healthcare world understand. And it has just been so different.
Well,
but yeah, loving it.
Certainly social care is facing quite considerable challenges at the moment. But what strikes me in all three of those comments is that all three of you have really worked kind of from the ground up, haven't you? To get where you are today, as, you know, really phenomenal female leaders in your respective roles. Just in terms of the key growth and leadership skills you feel has got you to where you are now, and will get other women aspiring to be leaders also to similar positions. What would you say are the main leadership skills you feel you possess that have got you to where you are? So again, if I start with Sam.
Not being afraid to make a mistake. I think learning that it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay not to know. And I think people don't really see that as a skill. A lot of the time you don't learn that till you've made enough mistakes to know it's okay and you're going to survive no matter what. But I think feeling comfortable with making mistakes from a leadership perspective is really key. We need to be able to lean in to when things go wrong rather than lean away. And I suppose for me, I think I have mentored a lot of people through their careers in care, and being able to say to someone, you know, it's okay not to know all the answers, and don't give yourself a hard time about it. That's what was told to me. And I remember, because years ago I thought I did need to know everything. I genuinely did. If you'd asked me 25 years ago, you know, why have you got this job? I go, because I know this and I know this and I know this. And the longer my career goes on, the more I know what I don't know. You know what I mean? So, and I think you just become much more comfortable with the fact that actually, as a leader, you're going to pull people around you who've got great skills, you know, and you grow people. But actually, I think the key skill as a leader is to be calm and be okay and make people feel safe and allow mistakes to happen, as long as we promise that we'll learn not to make that same mistake tomorrow. And that would be the biggest skill, I think, for me, that's important. I know I could go on about all the
I mean,
I've done and everything else, but that
it sounds as if you've got a very nurturing style of leadership yourself. And I think that's really important. And of course, the resilience that a person builds up through making mistakes is super important. And then having the support there of your team around you to know that they've got your back, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lucy, what would your thoughts be in terms of the key leadership skills that you feel you've brought to your role?
I've always been a really big advocate for collaborative and participative leadership. So I'm really fortunate that I've had the opportunity to really grow a team from the ground upwards, which means I truly am honoured to really be surrounded by the best, and also with regards to a fantastic franchise network. So I always try to lead through collaboration, ensuring that everybody has an opportunity to be part of the vision and everybody takes ownership of it, giving everybody, not just the loudest people, an opportunity for their voice to be heard through a variety of different forums, and also really showing people that they are listened to and it's not just a tick box exercise. And I think alongside collaboration, which Samantha alluded to a little, I think is the importance of showing vulnerability. I think all too much in the old world, as a leader, you are expected to turn up and show up almost as if nothing impacts you, and just having to be a really steely individual. And actually, sometimes that can mean that people around you actually feel maybe inferior, as if they're not good enough or they can't speak up if something's not quite right. So showing them that you are human and showing a little bit of vulnerability, I think, goes a long way. And all of that together really builds trust. And I think that is absolutely one of the most integral qualities in a leader.
Well, and that goes, doesn't it, into staff retention, which of course is one of the key areas that we struggle with in the social care sector as well. And absolutely the point about the opportunity and providing opportunity to aspiring leaders. And that can be quite difficult in terms of, you know, we have our own workloads that we're, you know, that are normally quite heavy. And sometimes those things fall off the radar a little bit. Hannah, what are your thoughts in terms of your key leadership skills?
I mean, I think just sort of building on, I love what you said, Sam, about vulnerability, and just building on what you said about, and it's just completely gone from my head now. Sorry, that happens sometimes.
You know, things go from my head all the time, so I wouldn't worry about it. You see, we're showing vulnerability.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's that's it. About remaining calm, and I actually love what you said, Kirsty, about how that Lucy, that how that can be interpreted sometimes. And I think one of the things that I might have been recognised for in my previous role in the hospital was the ability to be able to remain calm. And really, I'm going like this underneath. You know, you're swimming like a duck underneath, and actually, it's. But I think, you know, there is a time when staying calm isn't what's required.
Yeah.
And you do need to be a little bit more authentic. You need to actually show some humanity, show some emotion. You know, I've got some wonderful leaders around me at the moment who make me feel very comfortable because they are very human. So yeah, I think it's recognizing what was the most trickiest bit for me now. I mean, I think we're continually learning and growing, aren't we?
Always.
And what I was thinking about leadership a year ago is probably different, totally different to what I think now. So I just think, you know, for me, what I'm trying to do now is recognizing actually what does this situation need from me right now?
Yeah.
Does it need someone to take control and say, actually, regroup, we're going in this direction? Or does it need that kind of, as Lucy was saying, that collaboration? Well, actually, I'm going to put it out there to you because that can be so empowering to those individuals as well. So
the ability to take that pause, kind of reevaluate, and not be shy of admitting, I guess, when you're wrong, when you need to change direction, or when you need to stick with something. I absolutely. So how do you individually go about creating, or as an organization, go about creating a supportive culture to empower the women within your organization in their professional journeys in the social care sector? And again, you know, it is important for a myriad of reasons. Staff retention is one, but also to be able to nurture our leaders coming through. You've all come really from the ground up. And I'm going to get into how you may have had lifts by mentors or people along the way. But, you know, how do you personally within your organizations have that supportive culture? How do you foster that? Sam?
So I think
Sam, we just saw a picture of your dog in the background.
That's okay. She's everywhere. She comes to all the care homes too.
Well, my cat
Um,
may appear at some point. You never know.
Yeah, she loves to be in all of the things. I think for me, I set up this company very, very quickly a year and a bit ago, and we opened up 3 care homes in 6 months last year, and we're just about to open up our 4th. So we came from 0 to nothing, and I've come from another organization where I was a director there. And I think for me, when I started up this company, I wanted to take all of the learning, all of the mistakes, all of the things. And Hannah, I think what essentially you were saying is it's okay not to be okay sometimes. And also it's okay to kind of go, right, we need to act fast and we need to act quick, or, you know, we have time. And that's kind of exactly the culture that we have here. We set the whole system up. So we use tech, we use a lot of tech, we use a lot of different things, but the whole point of it was to allow time, and to allow time to do the things that actually you often don't get to do, and, you know, that to just take space on. So from day one, when I was interviewing all of the leaders in the company currently, my first thing was to ask them, what is their plan for succession planning? So what I needed to understand was, who would they look for to be their deputy? Because I would want their deputy then to be stepping into their role, their senior nurse to be stepping into it. And I wanted to get people who thought that way, who thought kind of like, there's some people still who want to hold on to their role. So I'm always looking for people who want my role, because the more people I've got who want my role and want to learn and want to grow, the stronger this business is going to be. And I think sometimes you come across people who maybe want to hold on to the info because they kind of think information is power, and actually giving away that information is the biggest power we've got. So I needed to find people with that same set of values and with that same set of thinking, that actually, yes, we can grow people by transparency, by openness. And part of my interviewing, and we still do it today, we test emotional intelligence on everybody. Nobody can work in our business unless they actually go through an emotional intelligence assessment center. So you can have a PhD, but if you don't get through that assessment center, you don't join us. So I think that's part of our strategy. And when I talked to people through interview, we talked about our first succession planning day, which was planned 6 months after the opening of our first care home. And I was saying, we're going to have away days, we're going to be away, we're going to be succession planning right from your kitchen assistants all the way through to your home managers. And I think initially they thought I was slightly insane because we hadn't quite opened a care home yet. But I think having a robust succession planning framework, that we have a plan for each individual and have that set in stone in the business, is absolutely paramount to making sure that we don't miss the quiet people. Who said it? Was it you? You said, you know, it's sometimes I'm loud, you know, so but you know, but there's a lot of the quiet people are the ones who actually, if we really hear them, we can learn so much from. And
Absolutely.
so real robust succession planning, I think, is key for me.
And it's identifying, isn't it? It's identifying those people who will be our future leaders.
Yeah, absolutely.
And certainly emotional intelligence is a huge part of that. You know, obviously they have to be good communicators, have people skills, those type of things, but some of that can be learned as well.
Yeah.
And I was doing a little bit of research before I came online, and you know, it struck me. I was reading something where it said that a third of aspiring leaders aren't aware of formal training opportunities that are offered by their own organization. And I just wonder whether you've come across anything like that, Sam. I mean,
yes.
How do you make people aware of the opportunities that are available to them, and then nurture that? Because that takes time, doesn't it?
It takes time, but I think going back to that succession planning day, I think there's 2 things. One is we are always looking for future leaders, but there's also a cohort of people that we need to retain and motivate. So there's those 2 sets of people. We have to have a plan for the people we need to retain and motivate, because we need to keep them. They're the core they're the ones that kind of show up every day. They're just as important. We need to be putting the energy into both sets of people. And for me, I think with the future leaders, and with trying to, I suppose, nurture the leadership pieces in that we have got people like Skills for Care, for example, who've got really great pieces of work out there that we know work within social care. In my previous company, we created a whole book on, right, if you're a kitchen assistant and you want to get to be a CEO, these are the steps you can take to do it. And this is actually the courses that you can do to complete it. And an awful lot of it was done through the apprenticeship levy. So we've done the exact same here, because why
Yeah,
change?
absolutely. So it's a career pathway, and you
right
make
the way through. Yeah, all the way through.
All right. Well, why don't we go to Lucy? In terms of Right at Home, how do you go about then creating a supportive culture to empower women in their professional journeys in the sector?
So I think similarly to what Samantha just said, a real values-based recruitment approach coupled with a really well communicated and robust career pathway framework is an absolute must. So we have something called the gold standard framework, and that's being modelled to recognise excellent behaviours and standards, etc., for people in their current roles, but then also to ensure that you can communicate a really clear pathway depending on what direction they want to go in. So it recognises that some people actually want to be really fantastic care professionals, and they might not necessarily aspire to be a registered manager, etc., but we want to give them recognition for being absolutely brilliant. But then we also want to be able to give people options to pursue careers in a whole host of different directions, be it in scheduling or a specialism such as clinical or dementia, or to progress upwards. So we make sure that we have really strong communication around that, webinars and collateral, we talk about it at our conferences. But that aside, the other really key aspect of our support offering, and being in a franchise network, it is a benefit, is that peer support aspect. So a key example of where it really does come into its own is our registered manager network. So speaking to a lot of our managers before coming into this sort of network, it can be quite an isolating role and it can be quite challenging. Actually having access to a host of almost 80 other individuals that are doing exactly the same thing, facing the same sorts of challenges, really helps them to, one, continue in their job, but also look at how they can get better and they can support one another. And then we also use those forums to bring ideas and inspiration for improvements within our services as well. So they then feel that they are really part of the direction of travel as well as presenting as a really excellent support framework.
Okay. Hannah, same question to you. A supportive culture in your organisation. How can we create that, a supportive culture, do you think, to empower women?
I mean, I think it's relevant to so many aspects to do with communication right from top to bottom, and how we communicate. And it can range all the way from giving people a platform, so giving them an opportunity to voice their opinions, and sometimes that can be really difficult to do with workloads and things like that. And it's creating a safe environment for them to come forward and say things. So, for example, we have a anonymous reporting system, reporting tool that people can use, that we as senior leaders are very careful of reviewing and making sure that everyone that we receive has a response. And for me individually, if somebody, a lot of it's to do with how I behave and how I react, and how we as senior leaders welcome people. And I think they need to feel valued. Our staff need to feel valued. They need to feel like they can come and talk to us. We have an open door policy. I always make sure, it's the small things as well. I always make sure that if somebody's emailed me, if they've taken the time to come to me with their concern, I want to make sure that I'm really timely and I come back to them with a response.
Do Oh, I'm sorry. Do you think the size of an organization has any impact in how you can create that supportive culture? Do you think there's a correlation there at times in terms of the size of an organization?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's going to be different things that you can do, and it will depend on the size of the organization. So, you know, ours sounds like it would be, you know, creating those platforms and those small initiatives. But I think that is also relevant to even the bigger organizations.
Yeah.
In that we need to make sure that the people that we do have in the leadership roles do have those communication skills and do value everybody coming forward. And I like what Lucy's saying about the recognition as well. So having a framework that recognises good work. We have Hilton Heroes at the moment that we're reconstructing into a peer review type panel. And that is to recognise that, you know, you don't have to be aspiring and keep promoting, but somebody who's working really hard and doing their job well, I think that's, you know, a fantastic recognition as well.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because employee recognition schemes, for want of a better word, they're not always centered about money, are they? It's about seeing a clear path there and having the support and the mentoring in the background can often keep employees with you more than, you know, a humongous pay raise can. Although it probably would be okay too. Yeah. Just in terms of barriers, so any kind of aspiring female leaders in the social care sector out there, there are certain barriers, I think, that they feel they face. And again, good old Google had, for a third of employees, they're not aware of formal training opportunities offered by a company. For 40%, they say that lack of training acts as a barrier to a growth in their career. And 34% said that lack of mentorship is a barrier to your career growth. How, I mean, one, would you accept those kind of figures in relation to your organization? And two, how do you go about ensuring that that is not the case and that aspiring leaders within your organization don't feel that way?
Do you want me to start again?
Yes, you're the starter, Sam.
I'm the starter, see. That's so she can manage the time so that you get to speak. I think would I accept it from my organization today? No. But is it possible tomorrow? Yes, unless we plan. We have to plan this. So this doesn't happen by osmosis. It happens because we plan how we're going to actually support and lead and mentor people through. So it can happen in any organization. And I loved your question earlier about, does it matter about the size of the organization? You know, I came from I've been with Barchester and Sanctuary and quite a few organizations, but my last one we had 32 care homes, home care, we had supported living. And I don't know that it matters the size, but it matters about the plan, and it matters about the processes that you plan to have to make sure that you don't drop the ball. So I think if it becomes part of the DNA and part of the culture, that is literally what we live for, then you don't need to lose it. And I think that's important. I'm just going back to what you actually asked now. Sorry, what was the first question? Sorry, what did you say? Oh, 40% did I accept?
The barriers.
So I accept that it can happen. That in my own organization today, that isn't happening. But I do believe that if we take our eye off the ball, if we make it less important than the day-to-day, absolutely we could lose that straight away. And there's barriers all the time in social care. Like so I'm a CEO of a care home company. I do different things. I'm a neurolinguistic programming master as well. I do hypnotherapy. There's lots of things that I do. So there's lots of things that can get in the way. But I think what we have to do as leaders is kind of stick with that plan when you can, but also flex when it's not going to happen. So we had a situation in one of our care homes a couple of days ago. We had a really good plan on what we were going to do. Then something happens and you have to respond, and you have to be respond, and you need to be able to support that response in the way that that person needs me to show up that day. And the plan that we had was not going to be able to happen that day. So I think for us as leaders, it's about not dropping the ball when things change and when we have to flex, and making sure that we go back and make sure that actually, you know what, that was the plan that day. We didn't do that because of X. It's fine, because actually sometimes we need to be much more kind of present and deal with a particular situation. But it has to go back to getting back to that overall plan and having those processes in place. In our organisation, I give all of our leaders free Audible, for example, just Audible. They all have a free Audible subscription every month, and we send out a different leadership book for people to listen to every single month. And then when we meet, we talk about what we've learned from that book. So what we actually each took from it. I'm slightly mad about Simon Sinek, who's great kind of leader, you know, Leaders Eat Last, amazing. But also Brené Brown and her leaning into vulnerability and really actually being a really open and transparent leader. So when we share that kind of thought with our leaders, it starts conversations that may or may not happen. So I think, you know, I think you can, even if you can't have that meeting on that day because somebody needs to be sectioned or whatever it is, you know, the culture around the organization is that we are a learning culture, we're a growing culture, and that actually we will learn together. And I think that, to me, if you keep that alive and you keep it in the plan, then it is key. I think, you know, both these people run different organizations, but we've got to hit the bottom line. We've got to hit, you know, hours or occupancy, whichever it is. And we can always put that as the kind of key part. But for me, people come first. So at the top of our organization is retention and people, and we work from there.
I mean, just in terms of your organization, just to stay on that for a second, do you have a formal mentorship program within your organization, or is it more people-based, people-to-people based? How does that work?
So in our organization, we have set up a system where somebody who, so like say like me, so I'm mentoring somebody at the moment, both in the organization and actually outside it as well. I do some other stuff too. So we do that. The team members are put forward for a mentorship program themselves, that they can learn how to be a mentor, because being a mentor, and then if you're thinking about clinical mentorship, that's a whole nother ball game.
Well, and I was going to say that mentoring means a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Yes, it does. Yes.
And it can be very generic, you know, or it can be more structured. And it sounds as if you've got a more structured approach.
Yeah, and I think we need that, especially for clinical mentorship. I think both would agree that, you know, nurses and clinicians need something else as well as the typical mentorship that we talk about. And sometimes people get a bit confused. They kind of think coaching is mentoring coaching, and we can end up kind of being in a really different space. Having mentorship contracts, for example, and really setting up a formal agreement that this is what we're going to do. I have a mentor who's a CEO of a big organization, because I contacted him and said, listen, I'm opening up this company and I need somebody who's got a bit of pop on. And so you need that input. You need to have that input. But I think if you started off with actually formal agreements and really say, this is the boundaries that we have, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're not going to do, I think then you have a fairly good chance of then teaching the next person and then the next person. So it's about having that skill right the way through the organization.
So Lucy, in terms of your organization, then, have you had any specific initiatives that have been successful within your organization that advances female aspiring leaders in your sector?
Yeah, so I think the gold standard framework that I was speaking about just before, you know, absolutely, it gives really, really strong career pathways. But something we've been venturing on in recent times has been into the clinical space. So we made a decision to employ a clinical lead, so a professional nurse into the organisation, to upskill our caregivers on delegated tasks and responsibilities. And aside from obviously giving them the opportunity to develop in new areas, the feedback that we've had is that they feel much more confident but also valued in their roles, and that's given them the confidence to push through barriers and aspire to do different roles, which is phenomenal. And it also ensures that they really feel that they are part of our direction of travel. And you know, we talk to them about why those roles are so important in terms of the wider integrated healthcare agenda, etc. And that's been absolutely phenomenal. But just one other thing I wanted to touch on, which I think Samantha alluded to wonderfully, is a culture of learning. I think, you know, within the social care sector, you know, our biggest barriers are really around workforce in terms of recruitment and retention. And sadly, some people haven't had amazing experiences. So when they come to work with you, you need them to know you're not just an organisation that talks about investing in people, because everybody does that, but one that actually lives and breathes that. And having a culture, a learning culture, which is really lived and breathed, where you really do deliver on your promises, is so important. It's really clear that Samantha does that within her organisation, and it's something that we really, really try to do as well.
And just in terms of the mentoring again, meaning a lot of things to a lot of different people, is there anything within your organisation, kind of a formal mentoring thing, or is that just via the culture that you ensure that that takes place?
So within kind of the franchising structure, it lends its hand wonderfully well to peer mentoring programs. So when we have newer registered managers coming in, or registered managers that are kind of progressing through more junior positions, we buddy them up with more experienced managers, which they find exceptionally helpful. We do the same with our franchise owners as well. So we have peer mentoring groups, but also buddy them up with other franchise owners with experience. And we're looking to do the same for coordinators and schedulers as well. So a real kind of culture of support and collaboration. And then for the more senior roles, we will have formal coaching programs as well. Sometimes we'll bring in external specialists depending on who it is and what they need. And then also the most senior leaders within the organisation, including myself and also our fantastic founder, Ken Deary, also do our own coaching and mentoring of individuals. And there is no greater joy than being able to support somebody to really unleash their full potential.
Hannah, same question to you. Initiatives within your organisation that you feel have advanced aspiring leaders?
I mean, I think I sort of have to mirror what Lucy's saying about empowering people should always be part of your strategy. So whichever strategic direction that you're going in, it's always got to include that empowerment of people, because that's going to improve your retention and what people want to stay, and involving them in that process as well. And I think just reflecting on the barriers in front of that, it's so easy to have a concept and then overcome the barriers. So you'll keep having to cancel meetings or any collaborative sessions because of work demands and things like that. And you have to be able to show real commitment to something, to be able to follow it through and do it in the way that you want, that you've planned and to do it. And I think I've done a piece of work last year about using the Restore tool, and I wanted it to be part of what everybody's development. You know, I wanted people to be involved from day one and get their opinions on board. I think one of the most valued aspects of it was that we had gone out to staff to deliver this and get to experience what they were experiencing and how they felt afterwards. I'm doing a piece of work at the moment about looking at delegated health activities and actually what is it that our support workers and our care assistants actually feel, you know, is it that can we have some research that shows that they do feel empowered? Because I think we know that, but I think in research terms, it's the support workers and the care assistants very much get overspoken by the professional roles. So I think what I'm trying to do in my piece of research at the moment is to sort of say, well, actually, what did you gain from acquiring that clinical skill, for example, and how has it made it fit into your role, and where is that, how do you feel empowered? Do you feel that you're part of where the organization's going strategically? Because I think a lot of people wouldn't be able to answer if they said, oh, how do you know what your organization's aiming to do?
Right. I don't know whether we've got any more time. I think we're probably coming to the end of our time. Unless anyone else has anything they want to, contribute.
I did just want to say it's been an absolute privilege coming on this podcast with both Samantha, Hannah, and yourself, Amanda. I feel truly inspired by everything that everybody has said. So just thank you for inviting me, because it has been an inspirational session, and I just want to say hats off to all three of you. You're clearly absolutely phenomenal women.
Thank you so much. Sam?
Agreed.
Yeah.
There's a favorite saying I have, and I always say it. Anybody asks me anything, I'll say it again. I can't remember who said it. I should say, I'll send it to Kirsty so she knows, but it says the culture of any organization is equal to the worst behavior a leader is willing to accept. And I live by that. So the one last thing I would say is, when I make a mistake in a hire, when we've made it, somebody's got through that we think, oh, Mother of God, they're not really living our values. I don't mind about training or learning. That's different. We can do all of that anytime. But if the values don't match, I am ruthless about taking them people out of the business. And I am ruthless about it, because I can't afford one person in the organization that doesn't work with that culture. And that can be really hard in social care, because you think about HR law, you think, Amanda's, in Amanda's position, you think, but the price we pay for not doing it is much higher than the price we pay if we do. Yeah.
But I did want to mention the WAGS panel.
Yes.
At the care show. So that's coming up on April the 24th, 4:15 to 4:45 p.m. Business Theatre, Leaders in Change, How WAGs Are Transforming Tomorrow. So just a little plug there. And I think the WAGs mentoring scheme is going to be launched at that care show. So everyone has to keep their eyes and ears out for that one. But thank you so much, ladies. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for the natter.
Thank you.
It's been amazing.
Wonderful to meet you all.
Okay, bye.
Yes.